This minisode is brought to you by TNT's new limited series, The Alienist. When a series of gruesome murders grips New York in 1896, Dr. Laszlo Kreisler and his team must investigate, analyze, and capture the killer. Inspired by The Alienist, this week we'll delve into the Thames Torso murders. Enjoy.
There's no place to escape to.
This is the last podcast.
On the left. That's when the cannibalism started.
What was that?
Oh, let's do it up.
All right.
So do I say this like it's a normal show?
Well, it's a mini episode.
It's a mini episode.
It's a mini episode. It's a tiny, nice little episode. It's like, it's kind of like what the cheap parents give out on Halloween.
Ooh, candy.
You know what I mean?
Welcome to the last podcast on the left, everyone. I am Ben Kissel, and that's Marcus Parks.
That's me.
It's mini, so pretend we're small. Henry Zabrowski, you're dressed like the
fuck
devil.
yourself.
Whoa,
Go fuck yourself.
What happened?
Second of all, yes, I am completely dressed up as Gary. I am wearing, I don't know if you can you see this?
It is a podcast.
We saw it. We did.
So yes, we did. He is showing us his underwear, his bright red for some reason, tidy. Not tidy whities.
It's a Speedo.
The Speedo. That's what it is.
I am getting
Very
dressed
European.
for a sequence in Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell when I am completely fully body sprayed, including up to my nutsack.
Oh.
Which they love to do.
I'm sure they do.
They love it.
Uh-oh, what am I getting on? A segue. You're talking TV shows. We got a TV show. So today's episode, Marcus, what do we got going on here? The show The Alienist?
Yeah, we got paid so you guys get extra content.
Hey, all right.
That's pretty. No, this is just. It's like a regular episode. It's about 30 minutes long. But this is brought to you by The Alienist on TNT.
What's The Alienist all about? Are aliens involved?
No.
No, they're not involved. Okay, that's
No, it is confusing.
Okay.
I'm going to straight up say out the gate, it is confusing.
All right.
But at the same time, thank you for your money, Alienist.
Okay, so what's this thing all about?
Well, today we're in honor of The Alienist. It's like set in Victorian times, but it's in New York. But we're gonna go back to London.
If I was in Victorian times, I'd get caught wearing corsets. You know how fun that would be to crank it up?
That'd be real fun.
Oh my God, you would look like such a big drunk screaming cannoli in a corset. But at The Alienist, like here, it's starring Daniel Bruhl, aka that's the guy who played the sniper in Glorious Bastards, and is created by Cary Fukunaga, who's the only reason why True Detective was good in the first place.
Hey, all right.
Yeah.
I did not realize.
Absolutely.
I heard time is a flat circle. Is that true, Marcus?
That is funny. It
It's
is
very
funny.
funny.
No,
It's
time
very
doesn't
funny.
exist. It's a construct.
Oh,
but it's
I
like a
see.
long thing. Time is a flat circle. Technically doesn't mean anything, but it's a True Detective. It was fun. It was fun at the time. We all had fun at the time.
It all sounded good.
Cool.
And that's what mattered.
I like Matthew McConaughey.
Well, what we're going to be covering today, we're going to be covering the multiple unsolved murders that surrounded the Jack the Ripper mystery and were ultimately overshadowed by the more compelling news story. All of these stories were found in the Jack the Ripper Casebook, the best resource on the internet for Jack the Ripper information, located at casebook.org.
All right, check it
Thank
out.
you.
Yeah.
Good plug, good plug. You see, what I also understand, these crimes are more interesting to me than the Jack the Ripper crimes. What made the Jack the Ripper crimes fun was the letters, but in the end, the press just sort of, what we learned at the end of our longest series ever, was that they essentially asked for Jack the Ripper letters and they got them.
Oh.
Well, to give you a little bit of a refresher, Jack the Ripper, the most notorious unidentified serial killer in history, murdered 5 women in 1888 in London. But the 5 canonical victims, Marianne Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Kelly, were not the only women to meet a gruesome end in London in 1888. They weren't even the only ones to die horrific deaths in the years surrounding 1888. From 1887 to 1889, the torsos of 6 dismembered women were found in various locations around Old London town.
Oh, my goodness gracious. That's a lot of torsos.
It wasn't a good time.
No.
For anyone. It wasn't a good time for feet. Never mind just lives. Can you imagine just having shoes on was bad in 1888? I can't imagine being a lady when it's still hard to be a woman in 2017.
There it is.
That's
Well, good thing it's 2018 now. You know,
Oh man, did I miss a whole fucking year?
just 16 days of one. That's not a big deal.
I'm sorry. I'm just sitting here with my tiny little sugar packet dick and balls out in these little underpants.
It is a little distracting, I have to admit.
Well, those torsos that were found between 1887 and 1889 don't even count the torso found on Tottenham Court Road in 1884, or the torso found in the Thames in 1873, and the other one found in 1874. And to this day, we have no idea who the perpetrator or even who most of the victims were. It's just torsos.
We gotta look for someone who's in need of a torso. Maybe a torso-less person, possibly trying to replace and wanting to use their torso.
So September 5th, 1873 saw the discovery of one of the worst murders the city of London had ever seen. The whole thing started when just the left quarter of a woman's trunk was fished out of the Thames River by a patrolman. Well, after they found that torso, later that day, a different policeman found the rest of the woman's torso floating off Brunswick Wharf. Then came the legs at Old Battersea Bridge. Then the day after that, back in the Thames, they found only a face detached from the skull.
Oh my god, and you know they had to fight a seagull for it.
Yeah, most likely. Do you think what happened? Maybe a tear in the bag, and then the person got home. He said, "Where are all the body parts?" Oh my gosh! And then he had to go retrace his steps.
Oh no! I knew I should never let old slippery Greg handle the goddamn body, mate. It's not me fault I was born with the slime on me.
Then they found the right thigh, then the right shoulder, then the right breast, then the forearm, then the pelvis, until finally police had enough parts to put together an entire body.
Wow.
Yeah, and put it together they did. In an attempt to identify the woman, the acting chief surgeon for the Metropolitan Police, Dr. Thomas Bond, recommended that they try sewing the body parts together, then
course.
showcasing the body to the public to see if anyone recognized it.
And that body became Giselle Bundchen, because she was made in a lab.
Made by science. Can you imagine Dr. Thomas Bond being like, wouldn't it just be like the creepiest fucking thing in the world to just show these people? People be freaked out, right? Yeah, it's a great idea. It makes more jobs for police officers if people are scared. Also, when you say acting chief surgeon for the Metropolitan Police, it just sounds like he played by like a Hugh Dancy.
Ooh. Yeah, it's maybe entertaining for the people, huh? Perhaps. Entertainment.
Now, Thomas Bond is interesting in that he was the chief surgeon for almost all the torso murders we're talking about today, in addition to being chief surgeon for the Jack the Ripper case.
Is he a surgeon, though? I mean, they're already all passed away, right?
What are you talking?
Like,
yeah.
surgeon.
Well, he was doing the autopsies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they call them coroners now.
Oh, I see.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean,
think-
he used to do regular people surgeries too, I imagine.
I don't know.
I should have looked that up.
Well, alienist.
Well, Thomas Bond was also the person who put together the first Ripper profile, making him one of, if not history's first criminal profilers. But in the case of this murder, all Bond could do was say, "Stitch her up and see what happens."
Oh, my goodness. Does she come alive?
Let's just let us see how this plays out. I'm curious.
Yeah, it reminds me of that movie. I believe it's called May, which was a good film.
Yeah?
Yeah, a girl
is.
makes her
It
best.
is really
Yeah,
good.
it's scary, and I don't want to ruin the end, but it does do what I just said. Does it do? Come alive? It does.
Well, the person in charge of putting her together was the local police surgeon, Dr. Kimster. He estimated that the woman was about 40, had a burn scar on her left breast, and was most likely killed by a head injury.
You like how I put her together?
The Alienist. Check out the show. TNT, it's dynamite.
Now, after she was all put back together, best they could, they made a general call to the public to see if anyone could identify the remains. But since they didn't have a skull, the best they could do with the face was to stretch it over a butcher's block.
Oh, my
That's not the best they could have done. They could have gotten a rock. They could have gotten some kind of basketball. They had basketball, I think, in the 1880s.
Now, this may sound crude, but it is actually among the first times a forensic facial reconstruction for the purposes of identification was ever attempted, even if it was horrifically ghoulish and unsuccessful.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just wiggling around a bunch of sewed together body parts and random human beings.
But what if it
You
works?
recognize this?
Of course, no one recognized a disembodied face on a piece of wood, but plenty got an eyeful, specifically the local horror dealers who wanted to take a look so they could sketch the remains and sell little cards on the street.
Ooh, okay. That's the business inside the business.
I would have one of those. I would have one now.
Oh, I mean, if you look at a lot of the Jack the Ripper murders, these guys would go, they'd take a look at the crime scenes, they'd sketch it out, and then they'd just sell them to people. They were huge sellers. These guys made a killing selling this stuff. So pretty much the only thing they could glean from the body was that it was dismembered by someone who obviously knew what they were doing. The joints were opened and the bones were disarticulated, with the only sawing being the hip joints and the shoulders.
So a surgeon again. Like, we're looking at the same thing like in Jack the Ripper, where you're basically, it's like someone like that, or someone who's a butcher, someone who's worked with meat before.
More likely a butcher.
Okay.
But from the way, either a butcher or a knacker.
What's a knacker?
Knacker is someone who just disposes of dead animals, not necessarily for the purpose of butchering, not necessarily for the purpose of meat. They're just like, say a horse dies.
You call in the knacker.
You call in a knacker, and the knacker rips it apart and makes it all neat, and then ships it off to wherever.
I'll get rid of it for you.
I don't like you, Knacker. What I don't understand is that also that's not really a job. That's more of like a horrible hobby
Yeah, I don't know.
that I
Maybe-
guess you could make a job.
I think they did, yeah.
Yeah, and most people assumed it was a butcher, but one of the working theories at the time was that the whole thing was a prank by medical students who thought it would be funny to carve the face off a cadaver and throw it in the river.
Well, I do get how that could lead to a laugh.
Yeah, some hijinks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause-
that's definitely the 1880s version of the movie Porky's.
Yeah. Doctors are weird, demented people.
Yeah.
Let's be honest here.
However, since there were no
Dr. Pimple Popper. By the way, I watched that show.
You're disgusting.
get
I
out
hate
of
pimple
town.
popping videos. I know some people like them, but I do not like them.
There's a show called Dr. Pimple Popper.
Really?
Yes. And in this episode, she removed a cyst, which isn't even a pimple. But it was so disgusting. It's like the videos that you forced me to watch, Marcus. It really is.
But you're
Accidentally
you're watching of your own volition now?
It was on Spectrum Cable. So
Oh, I accidentally watched a video yesterday of someone squeezing a dog whose belly was all full of worms. All the worms came out of its belly.
wait a second. Accidentally? How do you stumble? Did you accidentally Google that?
I don't know. It was on the internet, and my fingers did the walking.
Well, since there were no blood clots in any of the veins of the body, and since the body was butchered before rigor mortis had set in, it was deduced that the woman had died pretty close to the time of her post-mortem surgery. Now, even though the police offered a 200-pound reward and a pardon for any accomplice that might have assisted in the crime, there were no takers, and the murder will likely stay unsolved forever.
Well, I'll tell you why. It's because they offered such a heavy reward.
It's a lot of money.
200 pounds.
200 pounds. Now,
It was an English joke. It was an English
Oh,
money
it was a
joke.
joke about their currency.
I had to
See-
think about it for a second.
And it was a little Reader's Digest for everyone, but I understand.
You're gonna walk me through that one. I don't even get that one.
But the next
What would they give him? A big rock
200 pounds.
of weight?
Pounds is what
Like
the
fat-
British
It's
currency.
just
I
a
know
funny joke.
that,
It's just a funny
but what
joke.
would-
It's
how
a
would they give them
200-pound
200
reward.
pounds if it wasn't money?
It could have been a big trophy. It
Oh,
could have
I
been
see.
anything. It's a joke. It's a visual.
of
It's
your
like a
jokes.
thinking joke where you take the information and you think about it, and it's funny. What you think about is
Right.
funnier than any specific that I would do.
The Alienist, TNT.
But the next year, the killer struck again. This body had been divided down the spinal column and contained evidence that it had been decomposing in lime for a time before being dumped in the river. But for some reason, when the jury came back with whether or not it should be investigated as a murder, they left it as an open verdict, meaning they admitted it was suspicious, but didn't say it was an out-and-out murder.
This is like, if you're the serial killer, like, give me that jury. I want that jury 10 out of 10 times.
I don't mean to hold up or gum up the works, but it's quite possible there's a shadow of a doubt that he had tripped and fallen on a lightsaber and just cleaved himself.
Some deleted scene from Mission Impossible. It just walks right through all the lasers.
Well, as we'll see throughout these cases, neither of these women was ever identified.
Oh.
No heads!
And no wallet. Think about that.
They
no
had
ID.
to fight a dog for all these feet and hands and shit, and they had to get to the tour and like, oh, God, it's
to be-
rough.
Yeah,
We're
no
just
heads.
meat.
Yeah.
I went to my organ place yesterday where I like to eat. 2 or 3 days ago, I went to go eat organ meat, and they had whole octopus, right? And so I thought it would be a good idea, and it was like a 6-pound
I don't like it.
entire octopus.
Disgusting.
And the waiter was like they always do. He's like, you should eat the head. Because the head is special. It's very special. It's very unique. It's very delicious. And people don't normally eat it. So I was like, yeah, give it to me. And so I cut the top of the head off, and all the brains and the guts were still inside of it, and cooked inside of it. And when I ate it, the texture of the guts and the brains and the taste was so peculiar and weird. It was soft, and it tasted kind of like cinnamon mixed with tuna that I almost projectile vomit at dinner.
Why don't you? Yeah, there's no way you enjoyed eating that.
It was so wiggly and big and heavy. It was like I was eating a baby's legs.
You eat like Hannibal Lecter.
Good Lord.
We hope you're enjoying the Tim's Torso Murders. Here's a sneak peek into The Alienist, premiering January 22nd.
You think I'm crazy?
A monster unleashed.
My God.
A man obsessed.
He's watching us.
A city in fear. Mondays on TNT, the hunt for pure evil begins.
Cold-blooded killers walk among us.
Based on the best-selling novel, Daniel Bruhl, Luke Evans, and Dakota Fanning.
What compels a man to do evil?
The Alienist, new limited series Mondays at 9/8 Central on TNT.
The next torso murder came almost 10 years later in 1884. This time, the discovery of the torso came after that of the parts. On October 24th, citizens of London found a skull with most of the flesh stripped off, along with a big hunk of thigh left in the street.
Oh.
Then came the arm. Someone had tossed it over a railing, and with the arm came the only clue to her identity, a tattoo.
Oh.
And a tattoo meant that most likely the victim in this case was a sex worker.
Okay.
Why is that?
Because back in those times, they assumed if you had a tattoo, you were a sex worker.
You had to be doing something deviant.
Yeah. Tattoos were not high class ladies did not have tattoos.
Everyone's got them now.
Now, 5 days after the skull and thigh were found, a policeman found a brown paper parcel wrapped up and left in front of 33 Fitzroy Square. And this move was particularly ballsy, as policemen almost constantly patrolled the area. Again, just like the last one, the body was dismembered with a degree of skill. And then, just a couple months later, police found the bones of a right arm wrapped up in a parcel with 2 full feet.
Whoa. Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
2
Good
full
Lord.
feet. Yeah.
This sounds like just the beginnings of the bodies exhibit.
Right.
The bodies exhibit is so rough. They just the act of, I know it's science and it's curiosity, but if you're slicing human bodies so thin,
Right.
there's no way somewhere on deep inside you're a supervillain. I mean, like, you're
Yeah,
obviously
possible.
you have a problem.
Now, again, in this one, there were no suspects and no identification on the bodies. For 3 years, whoever had murdered the first 4 women, whether it be 1 man, 2, 3, or 4, stayed quiet, or at the very least stopped displaying bodies in such an ostentatious manner. But in 1887, a year before Jack the Ripper showed up, the first of 4 torsos would be found floating in the Thames River. The first was pulled from the waters near the village of Raynham. The remaining parts showed up here and there around London over the next 2 months. Just like the first body found, they were able to reconstruct it, but also, like before, and with everyone to come after, no head was found, making it nearly impossible to identify using Victorian forensic techniques.
They got to find these heads.
And the next body part, an arm, was found on September 11th, 1888, but this one was from a different victim. This was just a little over 2 weeks after the body of Marianne Nichols, the Ripper's first victim, was killed. Now, at this point, the Ripper murders were not the new sensation that they came to be. The Dear Boss letter, in which the killer dubbed himself Jack the Ripper, was still 16 days away from being delivered and 20 days from being published. So this was not a copycat murder.
I feel like, was this getting enough press?
It got no press.
Why was
no press?
I think this is press-worthy. Just a bunch of body parts being found for what? Over a series of years?
Years, yeah.
Well, it's very similar to on the Vancouver side of Canada, these feet that keep washing up. These like severed feet, severed hands keep washing up, and it sounds like someone's trying to just get rid of a body. It sounds like there are many people either doing things out of crime, which we saw when we covered Pee Wee Gaskins. Is a lot of times they it's people that maybe not were murdered for specific pleasure, but they were just trying to they were either murdered for some reason, and then the body was disposed of like this.
Well, as far as these murders being connected to Jack the Ripper, the murder MO has very little in common with the Ripper murders, all this torso stuff. But that's not to say there are no similarities. Both were product killers, although Jack had a fair amount of process thrown in there as well.
That's saying that Jack is, again, saying that Jack the Ripper was one person.
Yeah.
Which is probably was multiple people, and it seems like there was many people in the 1888, especially in Whitechapel and the lower incomes area of London. There are a lot of people where bad shit was happening to them.
Oh, yeah.
Both of these men used the bodies in such a way that implies the kill itself was not the reason behind the murder. All they wanted was the bodies. For example, let's take a refresher on the insane mutilation of Mary Kelly. He skinned her thighs and hacked away at the muscle before mutilating her arms in the same way. He opened the stomach and removed the intestines, laying them to the right side of her body. He took out the spleen and set it to the left, with the liver being set between her feet. He cut off her breasts and set one by her right foot. The other he set under her head with her uterus and kidneys. Ooh. The Ripper then hacked away at Mary Kelly's face until she could only be identified by her eyes and her ears.
I forgot how brutal that one was.
Right?
Oh,
very, very
God.
intense. But a part of the reason why is, and I think what we've heard about with most people when the corpse is so violated, is that it comes from extreme anger.
Yeah.
That sounds like something that is, I mean, you hate this woman, obviously, and you're just doing whatever it takes to degrade the body.
Exactly. Now, conversely, let's take a look at the torso murder. Now, while the skill level is that of a butcher or a knacker, each of these women were nonetheless dissected carefully. And while Jack did at times exhibit the skills of a surgeon, by the time he got to Mary Kelly, this guy was in full berserker mode.
Right.
It seems as if the torso murderer never quite made it to that point. Or if he did, no one found the evidence. But while there are differences, there are still other similarities. Both of them enjoyed taunting authority, although Jack was decidedly fancier.
Oh.
Yeah, he wrote letters.
Naturally, yeah.
Dear boss, from hell, so on and so forth.
That's right.
But the Thames Truncator left something far more gruesome and primitive. The worst Jack sent was a kidney. The torso murderer left actual bodies.
What was this? It was a strange time then. Van Gogh. He was cutting off his ear, sending that to people. What's going on?
It also seems like a fucking werecat. Like how like a cat leaves trophies for you almost, where it's like because they're so big. And you can also imagine something like this would be a great side lateral plot to an Alan Moore-like werewolf cartoon, or werewolf comic book.
Yeah. And the most daring of all these leavings was on October 2nd, 1888, when the torso murderer left the full torso of a woman at the construction site where England was building the new Scotland Yard, essentially police headquarters.
Wow.
Whoever this killer was, he managed to make his way onto the construction site and leave a parcel with the torso of a woman inside.
My goodness.
I mean, that whole thing, that had to have weighed at least 50 pounds, if not more.
Right.
Yeah, a person's torso makes up about half of your body weight.
Yeah.
Unless you're me, where my legs are probably about 15 pounds because they're so small.
They are
and I'm
tiny.
all torso.
Yeah, you're the Robotnik.
I'm all torso too.
Yeah.
Our legs are about the same height if you look at the pictures.
My question is where does he get a bag so big?
Yeah, that's-
because he didn't have Costco then. Because really now is the only way I would use that is if I had the bag of one of those big like dog food bags. That's really the only thing that could fit a torso.
One of those IKEA blue bags, perhaps. I mean, honestly, how the heck do you do it?
Brown paper and twine.
I forgot that more people were kidnapped by sack in that time period.
Brown paper and twine.
The killer, or possibly the killer's helper, made his way down to the basement and left the package in a vault that had been left open. The package sat there for 3 full days before anyone found her, and medical examiners reckoned she'd been dead anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks before that.
So it's pretty decomposed at that point.
Yeah,
I
pretty
would
damn
think so,
decomposed, yeah. And of course, she was never identified. And again, when the case went to jury, the verdict that came back was just found dead.
Well, we know that.
Yeah. They must have really used that stamp quite a bit in 1888.
Where are they getting these
We
jurors?
found her dead. She was probably alive at some point, and when we found her, she was dead. So, yada, yada, yada. They're going to use it later in a lovely show called Seinfeld.
Case closed. Yeah, these jurors are not doing a very good job here.
I
I guess
figured-
there's not a lot to go with.
Well, I figured they were probably pushed into this because,
Oh.
this body was found in the New Scotland Yard, and they didn't want that on the books because
Right.
it would be on the books forever that, a murder happened in the New Scotland Yard before it was even done being built.
Right.
So I would imagine that found dead was pushed just a little bit.
Yeah, they had a little mud on their face.
A little bit of mud.
Yeah.
Now, after that, the Ripper murders played out with the aforementioned murder of Mary Kelly, but the torso torpedo wasn't done yet.
Wait,
Is this
hold on.
what you're calling him?
Did you just
You're calling him the
nickname the guy?
torso torpedo?
How'd you bury the lead on that, Marcus? Torso torpedo. Sounds like a pro wrestler.
Yeah, the torso torpedo.
Okay.
I guess so. But the only way...
He wasn't throwing the torsos in a torpedo-like
Yeah, I
fashion.
feel like
but
if he
don't-
was killing people with torsos,
That's how that
I
would-
would call him the torso
But-
torpedo.
We'll give it to you.
Thank you. He was not done yet, as on June 4th the following year, police pulled a section of a torso out of the Thames near Horsley Down.
It's just like, they just name these towns, man. It's like, what? What's the thought process?
Horsley Down.
Horsley down.
Technically, pulling a Horsley down means sleeping while standing up, like horses do.
Then the left leg was discovered, followed by the thigh, abdomen, liver, rest of the torso, neck and shoulders, right foot and leg, left foot and leg, and so on and so forth, all in different locations in the River Thames.
I don't think anyone should go swimming in this thing.
No,
Do
of
they
course-
swim in
No,
it?
it's like going
No.
swimming in the East River.
No, but even back then?
Oh, I think actually it was probably worse back
Worse,
then, what with
okay.
all the industry and whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah, they. If I were to guess, I don't know this for sure, but I would guess that all the slaughterhouses and all that in London just dumped all their sluice over into the river.
Well, I'm just going to
Yeah,
predict.
and all of the fucking dump pails.
Yeah.
get dumped in there too.
Yeah, it
I'm
all
willing
flows.
to bet that there was one kid who loved swimming in it. And we got to talk to that kid.
Yeah, the pig pen of 1888, which probably makes him the dirtiest human that ever lived.
It's possible.
And in a bit of pitch black humor, one of the body parts was thrown over the fence of Mary Shelley's estate, possibly as a cheeky nod to her book Frankenstein, which was quite popular at the time.
Okay.
So it was a bit.
This whole thing.
Well, at least that part of it was a bit, yeah.
I guess so. At the same time, it just feels like someone who's willy-nilly tossing body parts about is checking addresses.
That's all
and
we
he's just
talked
throwing
about.
things over his shoulder like he's fucking Johnny Appleseed, but it's with fingers and fucking toes.
I have no idea what they were thinking.
Then finally, on September 10th, 1889, almost a year to the day after the second body was found, the wrapped torso of a woman was found under a railway arch on Pynchon Street. Like the others, the head was missing, but this time, for whatever reason, the arms were still attached to the body, which somehow makes... I don't know why that's the creepiest one of all for me.
Yeah, with
like
the
just a
arms
torso
attached?
with the arms still attached.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really very creepy.
It's all pretty creepy.
It's all pretty creepy, but for some reason,
Yeah.
that's the creepiest one.
Okay.
Now, out of all 6 of these women, only the 5th victim was identified. Her name was Elizabeth Jackson. And that may be why these murders are known only to a few true crime buffs and ripperologists. We don't have the names, and we don't have the stories, so we don't have the lives. All we have are parts, which unfortunately means most people will never know about the Thames Torso murders.
Wow, until now.
They tried to roll some of these into Jack the Ripper, correct?
Yeah, they tried. I mean, I found all this stuff on the Jack the Ripper casebook. I think most people, most sane ripperologists, believe that there was just another guy around.
It's just,
I dare you to do a mental survey of the main ripperologists and find the most sane ones. Because I feel like it drives you crazy.
I went to the Jack the Ripper Museum in London, and the woman who ran it was extremely nice.
All right.
And she seemed very well balanced.
They have to be nice. They're trying to keep people in the fold. It's like people who work for steampunk outfit shops. They have to be very friendly.
You better masturbate. Well, there it is.
That's it.
Fascinating stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I think?
What?
It's not nice.
No, it's not.
It's not nice at all.
Not at all.
My gosh. What do we want to do here, Marcus?
I guess, yeah, we'll be back with Jonestown Part 2. Part 2 this Friday.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, you know, it's a little mini thing for you. That's it. Yeah, it's a little. It's not gonna fuck with the release of episodes. You're still gonna get a full episode this week. So yeah,
It's a
I'm hoping
bonus.
we do.
Hope you
I'm
enjoyed
actually hoping we do a lot more of these.
yeah.
All right, everyone. Hail yourselves.
Hail Satan.
Again.
Hail me. Oh, yeah. Follow us on Twitter and all the bullshit. Follow Henry Loves You at Marcus Parks at Ben Kissel. Follow us on Instagram at Dr. Fantasty at Marcus Parks at Ben Kissel, the number 1. And follow Last Podcast on all of the bullshits at LP on the left.
Magustalations.
The story you just heard was inspired by The Alienist, TNT's new limited series starring Daniel Bruhl, Luke Evans, and Dakota Fanning. To learn more, visit TNTdrama.com.